4, 3, 2. Hello, good morning again. Good afternoon for those of you joining from Europe. Very nice to have you all here again for our third session of the day for TMF Week 2025. I'm joined today by two, I would say, veteran presenters, Aaron Knight and Matt Lowry. And before I introduce them, I'd just like to maybe do a few items of housekeeping. So all sessions will be recorded and available at the end of the conference. All attendees will receive a certificate of attendance for the entire TMF Week conference, not for each session. If you have questions, please put them in the Q&A tab, or you can also put them in the chat. We'd prefer if you could put it in the Q&A, and I will be asking Matt and Aaron those questions at the end of their presentation. And at the end of the presentation, there'll also be a networking break, and you can head to the lounge and basically mingle with your other TMF Week attendees. In terms of our timeline, so Matt and Aaron will be presenting for around 30 minutes. We'll then have 15 minutes for presentation, for questions and answers, and then we will introduce the next session, and then you guys will head off to your networking break. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome both Aaron and Matt to TMF Week for another year. This isn't their first presentation. This isn't their first TMF Week. So we're really happy to have you back to give us an update on what's been going on with the ISF Reference Model and to sort of walk us through it. So Matt and Aaron, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. And I also want to give a huge thank you to Kim. She's behind the scenes. She has a lean team from what I hear. They do an excellent job. Being on this side of things, you would never know that she does not have this ginormous team of 25 people helping her. So thank you, Kim. We love you. Aaron, do you want to talk about yourself first? I know that you don't like doing that.
Well, I mean, since you're forcing me, I guess that I will. Matt, why don't you mute yourself? Because I think there's a little background noise, so we'll just be a little bit aware of the muting from our sides. But hi, everyone. I am Aaron Knight. You have met me before many times. I have always been on the site perspective for TraumMaster File for, oh my gosh, 6+ years, I think now. I have more than 25 years, I should probably update that, direct experience in the clinical research field. Again, all on the site perspective, academia, hospital perspective. So currently I am the Associate Vice President of Memorial Hermann Health System, which is here in Houston, the largest health system in the Houston area. I also am the SOCR Chapter Chair of the Houston and Galveston Chapter, as well as the chairperson for the Texas Medical Center Education and Training Committee as well. And I have been working with Matt for many years. And so at this time, we are the co-leads of CDISC TMF ISF initiative. All right, Matt, it's all you.
All right, I'm not going to read all that. Y'all can read it later. But my name is Matt. I'm the CEO of the Pathways Group. I do a lot of work within site finance, but I also do a lot of work within regulatory. That's why I'm here. And as Aaron was saying, I am with her a co-lead of this initiative. And like I said, I'm not going to read that. We are going to jump right in. So a very quick overview. The ISF Reference Model Initiative version 1. We have 2 liaisons from the TMF Reference Model Steering Committee. Everyone knows who they are. Jamie Talton, Don Nickham. Oh my gosh, we literally would not be where we are if it were not for those 2. They are amazing. They have helped us so much. So as always, thank you. So the overarching goal was is to develop an ISF reference model for sites that aligns with the TMF reference model and provides my favorite thing in the world, standardization. We have a committee of about 46 members. Everyone on that committee has an interest in and experience with ISF, TMF, and regulatory. And this includes people from the site side. It includes sponsors. It includes CROs. It includes service providers, vendors, consultants. We tried to get people from a cross section of the industry. You say, well, why do you have so many members? Well, we have so many members because we broke up those members into sub-teams. So there is an evaluation team that did just that. They evaluated the existing ISF structures that were out there. We have a standards team that was responsible for setting standards, a proving team that was responsible for reviewing deliverables, an outreach team, which technically outreach has been going on since literally day one because we do presentations, like this one, publications, word of mouth, getting out and telling people about what we're doing and when it's going to be ready and all that. And then there's also a training team that's responsible for just that, training the industry. Erin, anything to add?
Well, I'm just going to say, we have the overview of why we're doing it, but the history behind it is that Matt and I were tired of talking about it, to be honest. We've been talking about it for many, many years. And we thought, you know what, we're going to put actions behind the talking about it. So that's what we're doing here. This was the action plan. And again, thank you to Jamie and Dawn for believing in us to get this done as well.
Yeah, like Erin was saying, this is something that I personally have been wanting to do for years. And this segues into, well, why? For me, the big thing, standardization. I want to standardize the ISF structure, how we name things, what we call things. Also to help sites have a healthy, complete, and up-to-date ISF, which hopefully will help sponsors and CROs have healthy, complete, and up-to-date TMFs. A big thing for me is I wanted to decrease the amount of work that we duplicate at the site level due to sponsors and CROs contacting multiple people for multiple things, sometimes at the same time, sometimes 6 months down the road. And something that I think we all can get behind, preventing misfiled records since file locations would be the same or at least not completely different. Also to decrease mislabeling errors since naming conventions would be the same or at least not completely different. And also makes audits easier and hopefully increase the frequency of audits. So I know a lot of people look at me funny when I say that. I am huge on having a second set of eyes on anything that I'm doing. So because if I have a second set of eyes looking at what I'm doing, then that helps me do better what I am doing. And if that happens more frequently in a standardized way, how can that not be good? Erin, anything to add?
What I think when it comes down to this is why we're doing it is because the TMF and, standardizing the TMF took many years of work, but it never hit the site perspective. We didn't know what was happening on that side of things. And so we really needed to merge together. We don't want to mess up your TMF. Absolutely not. But we need to help each other here with these documents. And so that was a big reason why we decided we needed to get this done.
So that brings us to the timeline. And I'm not going to go into everything, but basically, this has been going on really since about December 2023, January 2024. But we started in February 2024 by calling for the volunteers that ended up making that committee. Our official kickoff was in April of 2024. And again, the 46 volunteers with 5 sub-teams. And then from April to August of last year, the evaluation team got started up and we developed the first draft. And then September to November of last year, standards picked up and started reviewing the draft and made sure that we're meeting those standards. And if you look at November and December of last year, the proofing team started going over what we had put together and finalized the draft. And so this year, lots going on we have multiple irons in the fire. So the ISF reference model underwent the first stage of CDIS review with the steering committee. It was reviewed, and we followed up on about almost 100 comments from the steering committee. There was a targeted review with site stakeholders. Again, sites are the end users for this. So yes, we need to have as many people looking at it from the site side as possible. We resubmitted for a second stage of CDIS review with the TMF Reference Model Steering Committee. And right now we are at the point where we're meeting with the Change Control Review Board. Actually, yesterday we had our first meeting with the co-leads of the Change Control Review Board, and we have a meeting with the full review board the 16th, which I think is next Monday. And right after that, we're shooting for July for a public launch for public comments and review. Erin, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, as you can see, we've really moved quite fast on this. It was like as soon as the idea, we really started thinking about it and saying, you know what, let's do this. We just started running. We've met internally almost, we were starting off with every other week internally, meeting with our teams, and then we moved to once a month. But we have really been doing a lot behind the scenes to get where we are at this point, which I think, honestly, can you see the light at the end of the tunnel? We might be getting there soon.
Oh yeah, there's definitely a light at the end of the tunnel. And I will second what Erin said, that the amount of work that this committee and the volunteers have done, when I look back, I'm like, how have we done this roughly in about a year? I mean, it really just blows my mind. So some challenges. I probably should not put this out in the universe, but for me, this process has went fairly well. I don't think that there have been any huge obstacles or anything that has really tripped us up. I will say that some of the challenges has been keeping it as site-centric as possible, again, since they are the end users, while maintaining alignment with the TMF reference model. And as anything that's regulatory in nature, you want it to be detailed, but you do not want it to be too detailed. And this is because this has been a twinkle in my eye for 5 or 6 years, if not longer than that. It has been very difficult for me to accept that it's a work in progress. And once we release the first version, we already have work to do by starting on the second version. I also have to keep in mind that this will be foreign to many sites, since there are a lot of sites that may know little to nothing about TMFs, much less the TMF reference model. Erin, anything to add?
Yeah, I think one of the things that, kind of hit Matt and I when looking at, the first version or the first drafts that we put together is the fact that we sometimes don't speak the same language at all. And so we did have to go back and educate a little bit around some of the verbiage that we use. Does it translate to the same verbiage that people that are familiar with the TMF use? Also, some things that we do in our ISF, we wouldn't do that to the TMF, like or vice versa. Like, we don't want specific documents in the ISF, but the TMF may want them there, but that's on the sponsor side to do it. That's not on the site side to do it. And so there was just some back and forth, but it was good. Again, this is the reason why we asked for call outs on this, because we wanted to make sure that we were all getting on the same page with this, because again, it's better, we need to educate to get people to actually use it.
Absolutely. So this is probably my favorite slide out of all of them, because this gives everyone a quick little snapshot into what the ISF reference model version 1 looks like. And if you are accustomed to working within the TMF reference model, then this is automatically going to be recognizable to you. And And yes, if anyone has noticed, if you look at the top, if you notice, yes, we are still using the term artifact and we are still using the term sub-artifact. And that's because version 1 aligns with version 3.3.1 of the reference model. So some of the work that we're going to be doing on version 2 is going to be updating terminology because version 2 is going to align with version 4 of the TMF reference model. So that terminology will be updated to say record group and record type as in anything else that's going on within version 4. So again, this is probably my very favorite slide because we can take a year and a half of work and kind of squeeze it into this slide. Erin, what about you?
I mean, I think this just shows the fact that, you know, what we're really doing is we're creating a living, breathing document that's going to continue. Once we put it out there, it's not just going to sit and never going to change. We are going to continue to keep it up with the trends and the changing with the TMF that will affect ours as well. Because again, we want this to work seamlessly. We want the site to send it over and it can seamlessly flow into the TMF as well. That was the big initiative for us to complete.
Yeah. And that goes back to me accepting the fact that this is a work in progress, and it will always be a work in progress. It's just like someone was saying in a meeting a week or so ago, you know, when you're talking about the TMF reference model or the ISF reference model, neither one of those will ever be perfect. They will always be works in progress. There's always going to be something that's going to need to be changed or tweaked or edited or whatever. Okay, so ongoing and future activities. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, right now it is currently under review by the Change Control Board. We have our meeting with them, I believe, next Monday. We will receive their feedback, make any changes that we need to make, and then it will be released for public comment. We hope to do that in July, and it should last no more than a month or so. So if that goes according to plan, then we are targeting the launch for the official public launch for August, September. Like I was saying a few minutes ago, outreach has pretty much been ongoing since day one, getting the word out there so people know that we are doing this, and at some point it is going to be made public. We will continue doing outreach via presentations, updates at various conferences, webinars, etc. And then training is going to be available once it is released. And this is something that actually Paul brought up in a meeting that I had with him and Kim about a month or so ago, development of an ISF reference model community. We have not talked about it that much. We were going to wait until after TMF week to do that, but I kind of envision it exactly what this community is, the TMF reference model community is. You know, it's a group of like-minded people that use the reference model, that want to improve upon the reference model, or who want to learn more about the reference model, or whatever. So I wanted to take a moment and go back to public comment, because this is something that I had questions on yesterday about, okay, how, when you're working with something like this, what can you do to get it out into the public? So some of the ideas that we were batting around yesterday is, we know that is going to be posted on the CDisc website, and then notifications will be going out to the members and people who have signed up for notifications through CDisc. At least I personally will be posting on various industry organizations like ACR, the forum through ACRP, the Society for Clinical Research Sites. They also have a listserv that reaches, at this point, it's like 10,000. It might be even more than that at this point, but their reach is worldwide. I foresee doing a lot of posting on LinkedIn. I know there was talk about all of us posting on LinkedIn, getting the word out, then just in general, word of mouth. And then another one of the ideas is, because we do have a committee of 40 some odd people, have all of those people at their respective organizations, have their organizations send something out to all of the people that might be on their mailing list. So it's going to be a concerted effort to get the word out. I know that we are getting ready to gear up the outreach sub team and put together a plan, as well as, okay, when we make those posts, what those posts are going to look like. Erin, anything to add there?
Yeah, I'll be working with SOCRA in the SOCRA chapters personally to try to get this word out on my side specifically. But I think, as much as the power of the word and spreading this, and we ask for you guys to spread it too. If you see it posted, please repost it. Please share it with your network as well. The more, the merrier we want for public comment, because again, we want to make sure that we're launching something that really is going to be used and is going to be valuable information to the people that are going to be using it as well. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is make sure that you're, when you see this information, get it out there for us. If you have ideas of how we can share it, Matt and I are always open to ideas as well, so that we can really get good feedback on our public comment.
Absolutely. Okay, so I blew through the content way quicker than I thought I would. I was actually worried about going over time. Works for me because typically when we have talked to people about the ISF Reference Model version 1, it has resulted in a lot of questions. So this gives us an extra few minutes to take care of any questions that people have.
Thank you, guys. That was amazing, and it's such a. I think this has been something that we've been waiting so long for, and it's so exciting to see that it's finally coming to fruition. So I'm really pleased, and I'd like to congratulate you guys as well for moving it forward, because it's no easy feat. I actually did have a couple of questions that we can maybe start off with. The first question I had was in relation to how you think the model will be accepted internationally. Obviously, within each country there can be specifics. So have you guys sort of started to think about that, and do you have sort of any international team members as well on the team?
We do. Yeah, we do. I don't know the exact number, but I do know that we have people from across the globe that is on the community, that is on the committee. And so yes, it's just like the TMF reference model. When you look at the ISF reference model version 1, yes, there is terminology that is specific to the US based regulators. Like you look in there and you see something about 1572. So right. Yes, it does have that USA slant to it, or people who work within a reference model that is geared towards what we do in the regulations here. But yeah, I am hoping that there will be huge adoption internationally. Yes.
Yeah. And you can imagine that. So right now, for example, in the reference model, we tend to avoid any kind of regional specific things other than 1572. For some reason, we do have the 1572, but everything else that's regional, we tend to avoid it. But it is something that we're thinking very carefully about, and maybe having, like, in the future, sub teams from different regions who are focusing on regional specific record types. And so imagine that we could do the same thing within ISF as well. Eventually, you could have kind of regional groups that take the standard, the model, and then are able to develop regional aspects of that model and contribute them.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I don't know how popular this comment will be, so this is my opinion and no one else's. Because it is a structure with and I don't know if I'm going to explain this the way is in my head, because of the way that it is structured, it goes from general and then gets more specific. If for whatever reason there is a part that does not align with the way that you do things in your country or in your region or even at your site, there are still ways that you can use the overarching structure of it and still maintain the standardization that we're trying to put together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think also, once you sort of reduce it to practice and people start using it, then I think that's when you're going to get comments back, and that's what I suppose revision 2 is all about, is bringing those improvements and making it even better. But having reviewed it myself, I think it's definitely a very, very good first revision. It seems quite comprehensive.
Yeah, and that's one reason why I'm really, funny enough, I am actually very excited for 2 things: one, public comment, and then the launch, because I really want to hear what other sites, there's 1,000 different types of sites. So I'm really interested in seeing how all the sites out there that look at it and pick it apart and end up using it, I'm really interested in their feedback, so then we can take their feedback and make future iterations of it even better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think what Aaron was sort of mentioning, getting it out to the SOCRA communities is also super important, because those communities are quite comprehensive, right? There's a lot of people in SOCRA. And so I think that you could even imagine like partnerships there as well, I think, which could be kind of interesting,
Yes, absolutely. We will be, as soon as we have public comment, we finalize everything, we will be presenting this hopefully on the national forum, so that, because again, we have to get sites buy-in for this as well. I mean, that's the whole reason we're doing it. But if we can't get sites to buy into this and not think of this as a burden, but think of this as how it's helping them, that is so very important. We did this for nothing if we can't get that piece. So we really are focusing on the education piece and the training piece for the sites, because we're also busy on the site side. We need to make sure that we understand that this is going to help us in the long run.
Yeah, no, for sure. I also had another question about the review. So obviously we're putting it out for public review, but I was wondering if you've already sort of put this in front of any auditors or inspectors, or if you plan to, just to kind of get their feedback on it.
Yes. So, and forgive me, I cannot remember who it was. I do know that Jamie, and I believe this was in Geneva when Jamie was just there for the recent TMF interchange. She had an inspector auditor on one of her panels, and
Torsten Stemler.
Yeah, and gave him a sneak peek. And he actually had a couple of pieces of feedback, but was very favorable towards it. And I mean, for me, within research, is there a greater compliment than one from a regulator?
Right.
If you show your product to a regulator and they're like, oh yeah, this looks nice, this is great, this is going to help us. And again, for me, when it comes to audits and inspections, it's just that standardization across the board that can make those even easier, not only for the regulator, but for whatever entity is being inspected or audited.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's definitely, I mean, the primary use case is obviously to make the site's life easier, right? To sort of remove the questions and as to what they should and what they shouldn't have, kind of thing, and also have sort of something that's easy to implement. It's very clear structure, and everyone's doing the same thing. But I think it's also really important for the monitors and auditors and inspectors, because all of a sudden they can come to the site and very quickly they can find information, because they know exactly where it is based on the model. I think that's why Demler got very excited when we saw it, because I know that it can be a pain point, and it's also a burden for the sites, right? The sites. I mean, I know that you mentioned, Matt, that you love to have audits because you like other people looking at the thing, which I agree. But it can also be a bit of a burden too, right? And so having things well organized means that maybe it's going to be less of a burden in the future for the site. The site should be focusing on patient care, right? I mean, that's really what they do. So,
yeah. I mean, an inspection is always going to be nerve-wracking, no matter what tools you have, no matter what resources you have, no matter how good the job you're doing. An inspection is always going to put you on the edge of your seat. But I just, my hope is that by having this, it's another tool, it's another resources that sites or anyone can use and say, oh, okay, I have my ducks in order. Come in, please audit or inspect me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it gives them more confidence in those situations. Because again, as you said, patient care, providing patient access and care and things like that and research is really one of our number one focuses. And so this takes this piece and makes it a little bit easier for them.
Yeah, no, for sure. I really liked the points you were making around the community and sort of building out a strong community around this. Do you think that in the future you could also maybe start to put together other guidance, similar to what we have with the TMF reference model, where we have plans and guidance documents that people can use to better manage their activities?
Oh, absolutely. Because I know from firsthand experience that when a lot of sites see this, they're not going to know what's this. How are you taking my regulatory binder, whether it's paper or electronic? How are you taking my regulatory binder and squeezing it into an Excel spreadsheet? And what are all these divisions? And what are all these subdivisions? And what's this? And why does this go here? And why doesn't it go there? Well, I do things different. So I know, we do have that training sub team, and that is exactly what they're going to be doing. They're going to be putting together resources and materials so that people, sites, or whoever that want to adopt this, that it will be hopefully as pain-free and straightforward as possible.
Yeah.
Right. This also allows for us, when Matt and I were originally approached many years ago to speak for Trial Master File from a site perspective, we didn't know what it was. Like, we had to research it ourselves. And now more and more sites understand what the TMF is, but some don't. And so this really gives them an opportunity to kind of see behind the curtain that we all know is there, and to say, oh, okay, so now I understand why these documents are important, where they need to go, and the flow behind it. So again, this all goes back to us working together, which is what we've been wanting to do for so long, is that sites don't need to be an afterthought. We need to be part of the conversation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, when you look at the way that the regulations are written, they're talking about trial master file, which is the sponsor and investigator portion. They both go together. They have to live together as the story of the study. So it's a super important initiative that you guys have put in place, because it really completes the picture. Whereas before we only had sort of a partial alignment with just the sponsor provided records, not the actual site generated records. So we've got some other questions which I think we can maybe bring up. So what will be the impact of the model to vendors that offer EISF to sites?
So a year and a half ago, when we made this announcement, we specifically approached vendors and we said, hey, this is what we're doing and we want you to be a part of this. Most of the vendors that we approached accepted the invitation and are a part of that committee of 46. There were a handful that chose not to participate. So we have had a majority of vendors. We've had their buy-in and feedback from the very, very beginning. And I will say it has been very heartwarming for me to see that the vendors have been very active in this. As a matter of fact, some of them agreed to be co-leads on the sub-teams. So I just thought, and again, if we are talking standardization, well, if you have sites that do use an EISF vendor, well, if that vendor is also going to be using this model, well, that standardization comes already baked in.
Yeah, we made sure to look at all of the EISFs that are out there. Again, when we were starting this, we didn't want to, not think about the things that are already out there and potentially being used. And so we looked at every single one that we could find. Again, what Matt mentioned, we talked to a lot of these vendors as well before we even got started to get their buy-in on this too, because we need to, again, as I just said, we all need to work together here so that it is going to be something that's going to be useful and fruitful for all of us in the long run as well. So we did take every single EISF that we could find out there and reviewed it against each other. Found that a lot of them are very, very similar. Maybe they were just mapped a little different. Maybe it's, you know, up here instead of down at the end of it. But we really did our due diligence by looking at everything while we were putting this together.
And at the end of the day, because the ISF reference model aligns with the TMF reference model, well, you know, if you're a vendor and you decide not to adopt this ISF reference model, well, I would have a hard time understanding why you wouldn't want to adopt what we're doing, because, you know, alignment with the TMF reference model is already there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think especially as we move towards the digital standard, so, you know, we heard a lot about V4 and digital TMF standard. And obviously the goal is for the ISF model to be a part of that. And so the next version of the ISF model will be a digital model as well. And I think that there's some serious benefits that we can expect to see with that. So things like, you know, improving the way we do reconciliation. Right now, there's a lot of time spent reconciling, you know, the ISF with the TMF, and we have copies, and it's, you know, it's not ideal. I think we're going to have, you know, a much better integration between sponsored TMF and ISF, and better interoperability between those things. And that's where the digital standard is really going to help us. And so having those vendors involved right from the get-go is super important. And I imagine that they'll continue to be involved. And maybe some of those that initially didn't get involved will now start to get involved as they start to see this thing come out. Yeah. Let's hope so anyway.
Yeah, and one of my long-term kind of utopian goals for this is, you know, whether it's a year down the road or 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, is at some point having these products that talk to each other. So there, you know, so you cut out that manual moving of documents where, oh, this got misfiled, or oh, here this name isn't, this file isn't named correctly. Yeah. So again, my overarching hope for all of this is standardization that results in things being much easier in the industry and cutting out a lot of that error, or that room for error. I'll say it that way.
Absolutely. And I think that's where CDISC will play a role, because they can bring us the infrastructure through things like APIs, through validation rules and things like that, to help support that model. And so that's the good thing about the ISF reference model being part of CDISC. They'll actually benefit from that experience and that infrastructure in the long run. So there's also some other questions, and I want to get as many questions as we can answered. So I have a question here from Carol Ferdinand. I'm currently working on a TMF best practices guidance document to distribute to all functions. Is there a reference you would recommend to include the ISF component?
That's a very good question, one that I am not prepared to answer. I'll just be quiet.
I think that's a to be determined. It's a little early in the process. We're still a little bit away from that. But hopefully in the long run, yes, we will have that information to be able to share, but we're not quite there yet.
But Carol, please reach out to me and Aaron. I want to keep this in mind.
Absolutely. So maybe one last question. We've had a lot of questions already, but which is great. That means there's a lot of interest, right? So how will the release of version 1 be communicated to the sites / public?
I see that as being very similar to the way that we're going to release it for public comment. it's going to be it's going to be a lot of work. You know, there isn't one place where you can post something and, you know, everyone in the industry, especially on the site side, where they'll see it. So I see it a lot of word of mouth, talking to colleagues, LinkedIn posts, just having people who know about it and have heard about it, having them share it with their colleagues, and that's the way for me. I think it's going to be a very much a grassroots kind of thing, where it's just where we have to say, okay, this is ready. Go out and look at it. Go out and use it, please. You know, please. And then once you use it, let us know. I think it's going to be a lot of work, but work that I'm prepared to do, and I'm actually looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is where Matt and I shine the most, is trying to get word of mouth and networking and trying to get these things out. And that's really what this is going to be, because again, what Matt referenced is grassroots. This has been totally a grassroots effort for us, again, with the support of CDISC as well. But, you know, getting out the call for volunteers and all of those other things, we've really had to use a lot of our own internal networking resources, and we'll continue to do that as well for sites and public. I know just in the Houston area, just with my listserv of people in the research industry, I have about a little over 2,000 people and on my listserv alone, just for the Houston surrounding area. So we'll get it done. But this is the fun part for Matt and I. Absolutely. Yeah. It's like Tetris. It's like trying to figure out the challenge of where do we go next. And, you know, you're going to see a lot more of Matt and I for sure.
Oh, that's amazing. You guys are amazing. We appreciate it. Well, I think we're going to bring the session to a close. So Matt and Aaron, as usual, very, very engaging discussion. Thank you for everything you're doing for the ISF reference model. I think it's a great achievement and is really going to take us to the next level when it comes to managing our records at sites. With that, I'm going to just talk a little bit about the next session. So the next session is a panel discussion, which is being led by Donna Dorozinski. And we're going to be talking about V4 and all of the different aspects of V4 and the impact of V4. So that will be a lively discussion because there are lots of different aspects to it, including ISF, of course. And so please do join us for that during your lunch hour. Maybe you can eat your lunch while you're listening. And with that, I think we will bring this session to a close and head to the networking break. So once again, thank you, Aaron and Matt, for an amazing presentation, and see you in the lounge in a few moments.